If you watched this movie and you didn't cry, we can't be friends.
Let's get ready to rumble.
Dollhouse is a 2022 family drama starring Baron Geisler. And honestly, it feels like Baron is playing himself here. If you're not Filipino, allow me to introduce you to Friedrich Baron von Geisler. Why did I do a German thing? That was weird. He's a former child star turned bad boy of Philippine entertainment, complete with stints in and out of rehab and a bunch of other crazy things. So think of him as like a Filipino Charlie Sheen with a bit more anger management issues. He's honestly best known for a celebrity feud with this guy named Kiko Matos. Lots of people thought the fight was real, but it was actually for a documentary on the culture of violence in the Philippines. They staged a fight and then they staged a feud. The feud got so big that the Filipino UFC, the URRC, actually offered them some money to go duke it out in the octagon. But if you want the real picture of Baron Geisler, you have to go with something non-scripted, right? My absolute favorite Baron Geisler story would have to be the thing that happened to my friend. So she was drinking with a few friends in their condo, and then they suddenly heard someone knock. Biglang may kumatok. And what did you know it? It was your friendly neighborhood bad boy, Baron Geisler. And he said, "Hey, it looks like you guys are having fun, huh? Can I join?" And they were like, no. So Baron leaves, and he thought to himself, if I can't have fun, no one can. So he comes back again and threatens to call the police. He did this 3 times, actually, and by the 3rd time, my friend and her friends were basically like, alright, let's just leave. So hopefully now that you know who Baron Geisler is and what his reputation is like, we can talk about the movie. So Baron plays this character named Rustin, this musician who has a pretty substantial drug problem. In one of the first scenes in the movie, you see him doing some snow, and you can tell that this man is not acting. It's like second nature to him doing what he just did. You really believe he's doing something illegal. And the song he sings is like the philosophy of his character. The lyrics go, "Let me be stupid. Let me be wrong. You can't find yourself without getting lost first, so bring the dead ends and the turns." And you see exactly what type of person he is. This YOLO, you only live once mentality. And I think this is a mentality lots of young people have, especially people in their 20s or their 30s. They think, oh, I have my whole life ahead of me, so why not just have fun and party now? But I guess the difference is, Rustin isn't that young anymore. He looks like he's in his 40s, and it's at his friend's 40th birthday that his life starts to change. Because his friend, high and drunk, starts to ramble about life, and he says na pwede na akong mamatay. He can die already. He says that he has his family, he has his band, so he can die. But honestly, is that it? Is that all you need to have a fulfilled life? Doesn't this dude want to travel or see his grandkids or do any of those things? That's it? Really? But if he's cool with that, that's cool, I guess. It's his life, right? But Rustin is not. And the friend pushes it further. He asks, if tomorrow all of us die, are you guys not ready yet? And we see some really good acting from Baron Geisler here. You see in his face that he's going through an existential crisis, even if he's not really saying anything. You can tell that this is a man with lots of regret, and his friend keeps pushing it further. He says that people with unfulfilled lives, they're the ones who aren't ready. And Rustin is visibly affected by this. You see it on his face. Cut to the next morning and the friend is dead. He overdosed. Which was honestly a very, very predictable thing to happen. Of course, he's gonna die right after saying that he's ready to die, right? That's just basic movie logic. But it sends Rustin into an existential crisis. He keeps hearing his friend's voice. Unfulfilled life, unfulfilled life. So fast forward a few weeks and Rustin is now in the Netherlands. And we find out he had a whole life there. He had a wife, he had a career, but he had no ambition, no long-term plans, and a pretty substantial drug problem. And because of all those things, he lost everything. We also find out that he has a daughter named Yumi, and we get an interesting scene where we meet her for the first time. It's honestly a really long exposition dump. We find out so many things about the characters. So we find out that Rustin ghosted them after the divorce. And then Yumi's mom married a white guy who she sees as her dad now. Then exactly 3 years ago, on the very same day that Rustin comes to visit them, her parents died in a car crash. Great timing, Rustin. So now she lives with her mom's siblings, with her Tito Bok, who somehow doesn't know who Rustin is, despite him being married to his sister, and Rachel, who Yumi now sees as her mom, who also conveniently is not in the country. She's in New York at a work convention. At this point, we're about 20 minutes into the movie and there's so much for the audience to accept. But once you accept it, we can really get into the meat of the movie. It's the story of an addict trying to get his life together. We have a man who lost his wife, who lost his best friend, so he sees his daughter as his last chance for redemption. A last chance to make things right. But obviously, they would never ever let him near Yumi if they really knew who he was. So he pretends to be Tito Clyde, the next door neighbor who becomes Yumi's babysitter. And we get some really cute Yumi and Rustin scenes. At first, it's obvious that Rustin has no idea how to take care of a kid. But eventually, you see them play together. And you really feel like they're having fun. And you feel this bond and connection between these two characters. And eventually, they find out they have lots of things in common. Like father, like daughter. They both love music. And Yumi actually wants to be a singer. Even if she didn't know it, she wanted to be just like her dad. But unfortunately, she didn't get her father's voice. Let's not sugarcoat it, she sucks. Straight up awful. So they start to bond over singing lessons. Baron starts to teach her how to sing, and he stops using drugs. And they eventually have a really cute day at the park. It's Yumi, Rustin, and Bok all hanging out and just having a good time together. It's a really heartwarming scene, but you see in Clyde's face that he knows he can't keep up the charade forever. He knows that one day, probably soon, Rachel's gonna come home and the whole thing is gonna come crashing down. Now, before we go any further, spoiler alert. Everything we talked about so far was in the trailer, was in the synopsis. So if you're still here, you are okay with spoilers, so let's go. So everything comes crashing down as Rachel finds out that Clyde is actually Rustin. And Rustin can't see Yumi anymore. So of course he starts drinking a couple of cans of beer, gets really drunk, and you just think to yourself, oh, he's gonna start using again, he's gonna relapse. But he gets a call from his dad. And obviously Rustin is at a very low point in his life. He's like, Dad, I'm such a failure, I'm a disappointment, I'm a bad son, bad husband, and bad father. Tell me I'm a failure. And the dad goes, I'm so proud of you, son. By the way, when I was watching this movie, I thought this whole time it was Richard Yap playing the dad, Sir Chief. But apparently it's not. So let's call this guy Budget Sir Chief. So it's Budget Chief who actually saves him, who tells him that he made a promise to his mom before she passed, that he would never ever give up on him. And Rustin is moved to tears. And the dad shows us exactly how we should treat addicts. As humans with a sickness, who you give the chance to recover and get better. And it's the exact opposite of how Yumi's family treated him, as this cancer that destroys everything he touches. But Yumi never saw him this way, and she actually runs away from home to go see him. And she tells him, please just go say sorry. Say sorry so you guys can make up and you can come visit again. And Rustin tells her that it's just not that simple. And it's interesting to see things from a kid's perspective. For a kid, it's so black and white, right? Like, what is right, what is wrong? If someone says sorry, you have to forgive them, no matter what they did. And you really feel for the kid, because she's just a child who wants to hang out with her best friend, who she doesn't know is actually her dad. And she wants them to be okay again, because Rustin is the only person who is willing to take her to her singing audition. So Rustin, knowing that he's the only one who will take her to the audition, takes her. And they both run away from her family. And they have one last play date together. And this is where I shed the first of very many tears, as you feel Baron's amazing acting yet again. He tells her not to forget him, and to always remember the happy times they had together. And then a while later, at night, Rustin gets really drunk, and then pretends to talk to Yumi, Rustin talks to Yumi's bag and jacket, and he tells her everything he wants to say to her, that he's actually her dad, and that he loves her and just wants to hug her. A really heartbreaking scene until the real Yumi shows up. And he says one of my favorite lines in the movie. Wag kang magmana sa akin, ina. Please don't take after me. Fuck. So fast forward to the audition, and as predicted, Yumi is awful. But I guess Rustin hears what he wants to hear, and you see her off-key, very out-of-tune singing transform into an angelic voice. A voice straight out of something from The Voice Kids. And she sings her mom's favorite song, the very same song that Rustin used to propose to her. But after the performance, she finds out that she didn't get in. And Rustin tells her, it doesn't matter. What matters is she tried, and she tried her best. And you see it on Baron's face, that this might be the last time he'll ever talk to her. And what he says in this moment could be the last piece of advice he could give his daughter. And he wants her to know that even if her whole family doesn't believe in her, he wants her to believe that she can do anything. So after the audition, Rachel and Bok are pretty cold to him, which I guess is understandable. I mean, he abandoned their sister and was MIA for 8 years. But you both saw how much he loves the child. You saw firsthand the lengths he'll go just to make her happy, just to do what's best for her. So I just wish these characters showed a little bit more compassion. Because knowing that he'll never see her again, Rustin relapses and he overdoses. And honestly, it's all your fault. I say both these people are 100% at fault. Okay, fine. Maybe not 100%. Maybe like 60, 65%. These two people chose to see him as an addict and nothing more. So that's what he became. There's even a scene where Yumi asks them to pick up her dollhouse from Rustin's house. And when they get there, they see an unfinished dollhouse right next to this table filled with drug paraphernalia. And you see this look on their face. This disappointed, we were right look on their face. And it feels like in this moment, they felt like they were justified. We were right to keep her away from Yumi because this man is an addict, he will always be an addict, and that's all he is. No! This is all your fault! So yeah, I don't think we can say that these are good people. These characters robbed Yumi of a father. I think it should have been up to her whether she should get to know him or not. But instead, they forced him to leave. And as we flash forward into the future, we find out that all Yumi was told about him is that he is an addict. He tried to go to rehab, but he relapsed when his father died. He overdosed and had a stroke. For them, he's just an addict. So fast forward and we have adult Yumi talking to old Rustin. And honestly, it doesn't feel like it's the same person. Her accent is very, very Pinoy.
They told me the truth. He's a drug addict.
And don't get me wrong, I love Mary Joy Apostol. She was awesome in Birdshot, but I think she was probably miscast in this role. This very small role also. I think they should have cast someone who had a little bit more Dutch, or at least an American accent, right? You just have to sound like you didn't grow up here. But anyway, we find out that Rustin had a stroke, and he's not himself. He lost most of his memories and he can't even remember Yumi. But eventually they talk, they hang out, and we find out why the film is called Dollhouse. Ooh. So all in all, Dollhouse was a pretty enjoyable film. If you like movies that make you cry, I think you'll really like this movie. I think it's a movie that's not necessarily made for just Filipinos. If you're someone who likes K-dramas and Korean films that just make you cry, you'll probably really like this movie. It's a film about addiction and a film about family. And honestly, it could be a really long PSA just to not do drugs. But of course, the movie is far from perfect. Big chunks of the movie are pretty predictable. And also, I think the last part of the movie could have been better. It's just Yumi narrating Rustin's life. We just get a montage of him in the Philippines and it's not satisfying at all. We don't see any more of his relationship with his dad. So the moment we find out that his relapse happened because his dad died, we don't feel the gravity of it. Which is pretty sad because his relationship with the dad is one of the best parts of the film. Baron Geisler has pretty good chemistry with fake Sir Chief. I would have also liked to follow Rustin to the Philippines. I wanted to see him get better. I wanted to see his dad supporting him through his rehab. And then see the devastation on his face when he finds out that his dad passed away. And we see how awful the relapse is. But since we only get this in montage form, it feels like Rustin's character arc is just wasted. Because again, we need to see addicts as people who have a sickness that can be treated so that these people can get better. But of course, being sick, being an addict doesn't excuse a person from shitty behavior, but I think the film should have let him try to atone for his mistakes at least, right? So, all in all, Dollhouse. Should you watch this movie? I think so. I think Baron Geisler acts his ass off in the movie. So if you just want to cry on a rainy day, I say go for it. Just make sure you have some tissues by your side, ready to go. So I would rate this movie an 85 over 100. That's like a B? A B minus? Yeah, sounds about right. So thank you so much for watching my Dollhouse review. I know it's been a while since I've posted anything on the channel. I took some time to reevaluate what type of content I actually want to make. And while I did have fun making weekly videos on this channel, I have to admit that if you want to be a content creator in this day and age, short form content is where it's at. So I've been posting on TikTok a lot, and if you want to see more content from me, maybe TikTok is the best way for you to follow me actually. But it's hard because I still love the long form stuff. I love talking for long periods of time. That's why I also try to focus on my podcast, the Ryan Rambles Recap, which you can check out somewhere here. I'll link it in the description. So if you want to hear more of me for a longer period of time, maybe the podcast is where it's at for you. But I'm not leaving this channel. I'll still do long types of videos, probably reviews, probably video essays still, but maybe we'll trim it down to once a month, just so I don't have to keep feeling this pressure of posting every single week. And last thing, I've really been thinking about the purpose of my content, not just on this channel, but across all of my platforms. And I realized that the dream really is, or the goal really is, to share Philippine culture, Philippine movies to the world. And the best way to do that is by speaking English, so more people understand me. So while I do miss speaking in Filipino, I think English is what we'll have to do to reach that goal. Pero syempre, may mga Tagalog, kag Ilonggo nga magawa or nalalabas. It will slip out from time to time because I am me, and the way I talk is the way I talk. And if you're still here, I just want to say thank you again for making the time to hear me out and care enough to make it to the end of the video. But if you want to support me more, you can always be a member on the channel. As little as 50 pesos goes a long way in helping me create these videos for you guys. And as always, shout out to the Mother Lily tier members, Ashley Martelino and Ma'am Kay Ace Domingo. Thank you so much for all your support. But till next time, peace and I love you.
Hoy mga Pinoy, ito na ang medisina, nagbabagong apoy, linagyan ng gasolina, kaya't tinatanong pa ba kung kanino at sino ang tsak na puntahan sa kulturang Pilipino? Ako na ang sagot, ang dakilang gamot.